Is the Mini-14 a viable self-defense rifle for those of us who live in restrictive states? Or is it just another FUD rifle that should be used by people who wear overalls and watch Matlock rerun?
I hate that.
Welcome back to OG's Danger Show.
0 North Mont, Apartment 4, open 9119. Any Hallback units at 200, 1779 and RD 457.
It was the worst recession in our country's history. President Kim Kardashian, having based our economy on makeup and skinny pants for big girls, was not able to bring our country out of this mess. All commercial retail stores had long since closed. Even the last Starbucks had closed in Topeka, Kansas. And yes, even the Starbucks across the street from that Starbucks had closed. The price of a gallon of gas had reached $17 a gallon, and then the supply simply dried up. The only thing that gas stations were good for now was selling lottery tickets, dragon-shaped pocket knives, and velvet roses with fake water drops. I spent my days wandering this wasteland, looking for food and water myself. I once had a dog named Roy, but he eventually succumbed to radiation poisoning. I wandered day after day after day across the wasteland, looking for fuel, water, or Taco Bell leftovers. On this day I lucked out and found perfectly preserved Taco Bell dinner waiting for me. Taco Bell, having no natural ingredients, was one of the few foods to have survived this far into the apocalypse. Not even roving packs of wolves would touch this bright orange Doritos Loco taco. Although their burritos were normally as hard as dried clay, this one had petrified into something very similar to a brick. I was lucky to have my Kraken Tactical EDC knife sent to me by Johnny in Australia. Thank goodness it was engraved with the OG's Danger Show motto and logo, or I might not have survived this ordeal. I found an old radio, and after some time, I was able to pick up a signal. Unfortunately, all I got was old reruns of NPR broadcasts and Taylor Swift songs. One round from my Mini-14 made quick work of that radio, and I would rather have silence than that garbage. I soon found this 60-inch television and was able to rig up a power source. Unfortunately, all I could get the TV to show me were reruns of The Bachelor,
You're an idiot.
past episodes of The View, and some questionable YouTube channels. This YouTube channel promised to have some funny and informative information, but the content creator began his videos with some of the most god-awful hip-hop music, and the TV soon met the same fate as the radio. This bullet-riddled TV was far more useful to me than the working TV full of that horse shit programming. My stomach now full of authentic Mexican cuisine, I grabbed up my gear, my gas can, and my trusty Mini-14, and once again began wandering to try and find the remnants of the next village.
So firstly, I want to go over my personal journey with the Mini-14. I was raised in Southern Oregon in the 70s and 80s, where just about every ranch, every farm had a Mini-14 nearby. It was really the first widely used semi-automatic 223 rifle that was used from everything from hunting to getting rid of coyotes and wolves and other kind of predators on the farm. and pretty much everyone had one. Now the Mini-14 that I was raised on was the early 80s model that had the very narrow barrel and front blade sight. It's what they're calling the pre-580 series. Any of the Ruger Mini-14s that serial number starts with the 580 or higher are now some of the newer models of Mini-14, and they have some beefed up features that I'll talk about shortly. I was raised on the old-timey Mini-14, and although I didn't know about accuracy back then and didn't really care, I was able to hit rock chucks at, as a little kid, it was probably about a half mile away, it seemed.
That doesn't make sense.
Now, the early Mini-14s were not known for their accuracy. We can all agree that they kind of had a bad reputation for shitty accuracy. Early 2000s, Ruger set about fixing that reputation to try and compete with some of the AR-15 market as people got more and more into rifles for self-defense, property defense, home defense, that kind of thing. And so Ruger made a couple of upgrades on this rifle to try and capture some of that AR-15 market. You might recall that Bill Ruger, while he was still alive, was not a fan of any magazine over the traditional 5-10 round magazines. And while he was alive, he kind of forbade the company from even making those for people. A lot of aftermarket magazines popped up over the years, and once Bill Ruger passed, the company kind of stepped forward, made these improvements on this rifle, and started offering the rifle from the factory with 20 round and 30 round magazines. And that was a very big step. So it occurred to me a while back that I didn't own any Mini-14s, and I really wanted one of those, mostly for nostalgia reasons, but also for a couple of practical reasons that we'll talk about in just a second. Now this happens to be one of the newer Mini-14s, stainless steel with a serial number of 584. So it's one of the newer Minis that has the thicker barrel and different front sights. That's the first way to tell that you've got a newer style Mini-14. So Ruger, in deciding to fix up their Mini-14 and make it a little more commercially viable for the market, decided to do a few things. Now, they've always had synthetic stocks available for Mini-14s. It does have a decent amount of aftermarket parts, but the action was never known for being all that tight. That's one of the reasons it had shitty accuracy. It also had a very thin barrel, and the barrel was kind of known to whip. If you ever saw them under high-speed camera, the barrel would flop around, whip in the air as the round was passing through. Well, that's obviously going to fling your rounds God knows where downrange. The other thing was the front blade sight. Although I personally think it looked a lot cooler, that front blade sight was mated to the barrel. There was no punching a pin and moving that sight. It was pretty much welded to the barrel. Ruger also went about a whole lot of processes that I won't go into here, but they tightened up the action on these and made them a tighter action, a better gas operating system, a little bit tighter gas block fit to the barrel, and just made a better overall rifle. Now Ruger and every other place on earth has started making these aftermarket magazines in 10 rounds, 20 rounds, 30 rounds, and to be honest with you, they're pretty dang good. If Ruger would only make a rifle, a Mini-14, that took AR-15 magazines, I think they'd sweep the market. We all have crates and crates of AR-15 magazines sitting around, and to get a durable rifle like the Mini-14 that is socially acceptable in all 50 states, well, if that only took AR-15 magazines, I'd be sold. I was on the hunt for a rifle that could be 50 state compliant. Now I know that the AR-15 is pretty socially acceptable in all states. I come from California. Everybody I know has AR-15s. I have AR-15s. I have quite a few AR-15s. I wanted a rifle that I could travel with all 50 states and not worry about getting in trouble with local laws. Even as a police officer, I like to have a rifle that I could deploy somewhere in any one of those states and not worry about getting jammed up after the fact if I needed to use this to protect myself and Mrs. OG as we make these road trips. Now I won't go into all the laws and the regulations in all the states in the United States. That would be a pain in the ass and pretty much like trying to nail Jell-O to a tree.
Good one.
It can't be done. However, in the United States, you are pretty safe if you have a rifle that has no pistol grip, if you have a fixed buttstock, no sliding, collapsing buttstock, and if you have a barrel with no muzzle device on the end. Just a plain old naked barrel with no threads and no flash hiders or compensators. You're pretty much good with this rifle, even though it's semi-automatic, and even though it takes detachable magazines. you're good with this rifle here in California, but you're also good with this rifle in just about all 50 states as far as I'm aware. So I wanted to have a rifle that could travel with me, that is socially acceptable in all scenarios, and yet works just about as good as an AR-15? Question mark. A Mini-14 is a gas-operated, piston-driven, semi-automatic rifle that can take as many rounds as an AR-15, shoot just as fast as an AR-15, and reach out there and touch someone just about the same as an AR-15. Now, the Mini-14 doesn't have as many accessories available out there on the market. Finding aftermarket parts for a Mini-14 is a little bit harder. There's not a bunch of rail sections available, widely available at least, that you can put your quick release slings in. We're here today to take a look and see if the Mini-14 is a viable self-defense rifle for my purposes on the road, or whether it should be thrown in the dumpster fire that is California and left behind. So back to my Mini-14 journey. I started looking around online at different sites and was shocked to see that Mini-14s are going for $1,000 nowadays. So I'm looking around for a stainless Mini-14. I really like the stainless look, but I also need stainless because of where I'm moving. A lot of weather and snow up there, and I prefer to have a stainless in a synthetic stock than the blued version in a wood stock. The first thing I found was this Mini-14 Target model. Now, I didn't know that much about the Target model. It looked pretty cool. It kind of looks like it has a suppressor on the end of it. Everyone I show this rifle to, immediately their eyes pop open and they think that I've got a suppressor on this, but no. This is a barrel harmonics device. This device can be loosened with a couple of set screws here and dialed up and down to help control the whip of that barrel. You'll also notice that this barrel is a little bit thicker. It's a heavy barrel model, and combined with this barrel harmonics device, it's supposed to provide quite a bit more accuracy than your standard Mini-14. Now, at the time I was looking for Mini-14s, it was actually a very lightly used model, and I found it for quite a bit cheaper than standard Mini-14s. So, being an idiot, I jumped on it. I'm always fast to spend money and realized later that I got something that wasn't quite what I needed. Like many of you, after I owned the item, then I started doing a little research. Now, I was dismayed to find out that the Target model Mini-14 should only be shot with .223 ammunition. Now, 99% of the ammunition I own or come across is .223. Every once in a while, I'll find 5.56 ammunition, and it is mixed in with my stash at home. So I needed a rifle actually that could shoot both, because I wanted to be able to pick up ammunition anywhere, whether it was military surplus or commercial .223 ammunition, and shove it in that rifle and make it work no matter what. Ruger and everybody online recommends that you not shoot 5.56 ammunition out of the Ruger Target model. It should only shoot .223 ammunition, and that has to do with the shoulder widths and spacing and head spacing. I'm not going to get into all the nerdy stuff, but it's not supposed to take 5.56 ammunition. So I was now stuck with a rifle that wouldn't quite eat every single thing that I might find in my house. This was less than optimal, and I immediately started making plans for how to sell this rifle and get the correct one. So when the standard model came in and I had them sitting side by side with the Target model in the OG's Danger editing studio, boy, these two rifles just looked like they went together. And now I'm kind of debating whether or not I should sell that Target model. We're going to put them head to head here in a future video and see whether the Target model is worth keeping, or should I just unload it and stick with one standard Mini-14 that does everything. This Mini-14 is chambered in 5.56 NATO. That means it will take 5.56 ammunition and .223 ammunition. It'll shoot basically everything that I could find on any gun store, hardware store, or surplus store shelf. Not so with the Target model. Now, both of these Ruger Mini-14 rifles shipped with a 5-round magazine. It's a flush magazine from Ruger, has a little Ruger floor plate. It's more or less only good for hunting because it's compliant with all hunting laws in all states. Well, that kind of magazine is bullshit for self-defense. You need a few more rounds, and I wanted some 20-round, if not 30-round magazines. So I went online. I found these nickel-coated Pro Mag magazines. These are getting pretty damn good reviews. I've shot quite a few rounds through these so far. They're not all that bad. They haven't been 100% reliable, but we're going to check them out again here today and see what we think. So one of the comparison items in Mini-14s versus AR-15s, with an AR-15 you have a magazine that more or less you take in a beer can grip and you shove straight up into the magazine well until your magazine release clicks. Then you tap it and tug it and you know you've got a firmly fixed magazine. The Mini-14 magazine is a little more like an AK-47 magazine. It has a hole there on the front of the spine. That hole needs to be lined up with a little stud inside there. Little stud, that's right. And the magazine rocks back into place. Now the magazine is firmly fixed in the rifle, but it takes a little bit of practice to get those magazines in and out of the rifle quickly. And for those of us who've been using AR-15s on duty and off duty our entire lives, under stress, there's no telling how this magazine change would go. To eject this magazine, I want to press in on the magazine release and rotate the magazine straight out into my hand, just opposite of the way it went into the rifle. So that's maybe not as easy, but any guy who buys a Mini-14 and makes this his primary rifle, you're going to find that with a little practice, this little technique here becomes pretty damn easy. I set up these challenge targets at about what I originally thought was 30 yards. I later measured it to 50 yards, and another one at 100 yards away. These challenge targets were essentially the size of the vitals of a human and the face. So any good hits from those distances are good fight-stopping hits. Now the target model Mini-14 wears a Vortex Strike Eagle. It's a lower end, kind of an entry level LPVO, low powered variable optic. It has a little bit different reticle than the primary arms ACSS over on the standard model, but we're going to put them head to head anyway with these current optics and see what they can do as far as practical accuracy. Okay, first on that 30-yard target using the LPVO, I'm going to try it first at 1 power, see what I can do just with what would be the close quarters reticle on this rifle. Show you real quick here with this magazine. I got one that has failed to eject all the way out. As is usual with a failure to eject, sitting right behind it is another one ready to go. So standing and shooting offhand, I was able to hit that target from about 30, 35, maybe 40 yards away. I haven't really measured this one. Let's reach out and see if we can't touch that 100-yard target. I'm on 1 power here, so I'm not even zoomed in. Let's give it a try. Got a hit. 100 yards. Holy crap, OG. 1 power? Got it. All right, let's quit dicking around with 1 power and zoom it up to 6. Oh shit, we got steel, round number 1. Steel, 100 yards away, 6 power LPVO. And offhand, I'm not seated. Let's try that 30-yard target again. There we go. Hit. Miss. We have another failure to eject aftermarket magazine. Clear that little stovepipe out of there. Stovepipes are always followed by a live round. Let's get back to it. Wow, actually hit the steel offhand, 100 yards. All right, the target model does not have a sling attached, so we're just going to brace this from a seated position, work on our 30-yard guy and our 100-yard guy. Just as I sat down, I remembered that I haven't even zeroed this optic. It's the first time I've taken it out since I put this LPVO on it. So let's give it a try and see if we're anywhere close. Virtually no recoil with this rifle because of this heavy barrel out front. Another stovepipe. Failed to eject the spent case. This is from the Target model. Maybe it just needs a little time to break in. Who knows? So here is our 30-yard, actually, as I look at it, I'm looking back to my shooting position, and we're closer to probably 40, 45 yards, maybe not a full 50 yards away. I was calling it 30, but we're definitely farther than 30 yards. This is our steel target. You can kind of see here why we put this thing at an extreme angle. The round hits, splatters off to the side, dissipating all of its energy out into the open countryside where it is safe and not pitting our target. Here is our 100-yard target. This one I know the distance on because I lasered it off. So we definitely have 100 yards here, and you can see there's been a few hits, most of them to the face. That was a fresh target. So most of our 100-yard hits were to the face. Pretty impressive. Again, even if we had hit the body, those were all, well, I won't call them kill shots. I hate that. It sounds like a video gamer. But those were all fight-stopping hits with a 5.56 round to the face. All right, we got to pack up our trash and head back into town. Mrs. OG is waiting on us. Well, there it is. You saw two Mini-14s put head-to-head. We saw which one was more accurate and more easy to shoot, but I think we know which one's a little more practical for an everyday kind of truck rifle or roaming the countryside rifle. I haven't yet decided if I'm going to sell the Target model, but I think I know that the standard model is much more practical for my uses, for just driving across country and wanting a rifle that I can keep compliant. We can all agree the AR-15 is probably a far better rifle. There's just more parts, more support out there, more magazines, and they're a little bit more reliable in today's experience. But if I want a rifle that I've got to roam the countryside and in and out of multiple jurisdictions, and I want to try and stay quasi-legal, I think the Mini-14 is going to fill the bill pretty nicely, especially if I break it in a little bit more and make some of these questionable magazines a little more reliable. So I appreciate you guys stopping by and watching. I want to thank the Patreon donors for their support. You guys have helped us come up with ammo during this ammo apocalypse this past couple years, so I very much appreciate your support. If you'd like to join us over on Patreon, use the link down here in the description section. Your support helps us buy ammunition, magazines, just everything to keep the show running. The very sound system that you're hearing this on. Patreon donors always get the videos released the night before. They have gotten some real nice giveaways recently. I've given away some pretty high dollar knives and tomahawks over there on Patreon. So if you're able to support the show and you'd like to help us out over on Patreon, I very much appreciate your support. Doesn't matter though, either way, I very much appreciate you guys stopping by and watching this video. If you haven't already done so, reach down here and hit the subscribe button, hit that stupid little bell over there so that you'll be notified every time I upload more crap to the internet. So until next time, I want to always remind you to stay armed out there. These are crazy times out there, and I think it's going to get crazier. So I encourage you guys to stay armed where you are legally allowed to do so. Stay safe, and until the next video, OG out.